Hello again, small business professionals, small business owners, and church management professionals. That's what I meant to say. Anyhow, got another video out here about strategic planning for churches. This will be the last one of the soft skills, as I put it. The other ones in the soft skills category being mission statement and SWOT analysis. Check out my channel to see those. Let me also point out real quick that there will be a link to my post on the subject in the description, and I also like to put shortcuts, in the description, because I can tend to go on for a while, and if you want to jump to a specific part, then it gives you the ability to do that. So anyhow, let's get into it. So this video is on strategy formulation in specifically in strategic planning in general. I kind of molded them together because the way I look at it, strategy formulation is like a piece of strategic planning. Strategic planning to me includes the videos I've made previously on mission statement and SWOT analysis, but in addition to that, also capital budgeting, operational budgeting, and financial budgeting. I'd also include in there capacity planning, but I don't have any content on that. So for the time being, you're on your own there. I'm sure there's somebody somewhere that addresses capacity planning for churches. So we'll start out talking a little bit here about strategic planning, and then get more into the actual strategy formulation part of things a little later on. So let's just start off here by thinking about two different strategic plans. Sorry, I'm not enunciating so great tonight. Let me back up for a second and apologize again. And I know that's not, really selling it when you apologize for your own video, but for these soft skill videos, mission statement, SWOT analysis, strategy formulation, I don't have a ton of visual material to accompany it. I could do, and may someday do, a PowerPoint on those subjects, but I don't know that that's going to really grab your attention all that much more. I mean, we're all a little tired of PowerPoints, aren't we? And you can see my outlines up there on the screen, so at least you kind of know what's coming up. And if you see something that you think you might be more interested in than the section that I'm talking about at a given time, then go down in the description, click on shortcut, jump around, as you see fit. There's plenty of other people writing on the subject of church strategic planning, and some very skilled and experienced people. So, I'll say, this is not a definitive look at church strategic planning or strategy formulation. It's merely something to give you a couple ideas on where to start and how to go about addressing those subjects. So combine it with the other great information that you get, take the best part of it, take the best part of something else, combine it, you should be all right. So anyhow, let me get back to my outline here. Let's consider two different strategic plans. Okay. So let's say two churches next door to each other. Okay. Two different strategic plans. The first one says they're going to put a handrail on the steps for the elderly members of the congregation. That's it. It's their only plan for the upcoming year. There's no budget. There's no, it doesn't tie into any sort of mission statement, no SWOT analysis, anything like that. They're just going to put up a handrail because they think that's what's needed. Okay, and they do that. All right, because it's simplistic and easy enough, and they have a couple of volunteers over one weekend to get that handrail put up. Now let's look at the other church next to it. This, they make a big production out of it, and that's not necessarily bad. It's planning, it's thinking about the future of your church. But they bring in the pastor, the elders, consultants, members of the congregation, and spend 6 weeks poring over every step of the strategic plan, from mission statement through SWOT analysis, through strategy formulation, capital budgeting, operational budgeting, financial budgeting. Okay, so they give everything its due time. All right, they think things through thoroughly and have an outstanding plan when all's said and done. But once the 6 weeks is up and the new year comes, it's never referred to again. Okay, so which of those two is the superior strategic plan? Well, I would say it is the first one, because it's the one that got acted upon. Okay, all the thought in the world doesn't mean anything without action. And this is coming from a guy who is a proponent of, bringing in people to give differing opinions on strategic planning, giving it its time, giving it its thought. Excuse me. Particularly, I'm a proponent of doing the capital budgeting, doing the operational budgeting. That's all great. Should be done. But again, it's all useless if no action's taken because of it. It's a waste of time. It's only as good as the actions that it leads to. Okay? So keep that in mind in terms of the strategic planning going forward. When you watch my other videos, when you look up information from anybody else in terms of, on anything, when it comes to reading a book, I used to think, well, just reading a lot is great, and it is, potentially. But ultimately, reading and learning a lot is only as useful as the amount you're able to apply. Okay, how much have you read? How much have I read that is a distant memory? It's gone. It might be somewhere in there, deep down inside of my brain, but I never applied it to anything. So that's something I'm working on personally now. Is when I read something, I try to do my homework and make sure it's worthwhile, and make sure that I apply it one way or another. That may or may not be completely practical all the time, but I want to apply it because I want to learn it. I want to commit it to memory. I want to commit it to habit. If I find something that's worthwhile to read, that's good to read, I want to absorb it. Okay? So I would say the same is true about strategic planning. If you make the commitment to go forth with it, and I believe you should, as I said before, then, throw yourself into it. Okay? Absorb it. Live it. Take action upon it. Right? Learn your lessons. Get your feedback. Make your mistakes. All those sorts of things. All right? So, like I said, I've given you a couple of videos already, and I have posts on all of these except the financial budget for churches, which is coming soon, I promise, as soon as I finish up the latest spreadsheet template on activity-based costing. I'm going back, and I'm going to write that darn financial budgeting for churches post. I'm going to get a video out on it, and I'm going to have something, a post and a video for every aspect of church strategic planning. Coming soon, I promise. Anyhow, so I've got videos on all this. I've got my steps. I've got my opinions on how to approach things. And, just as a reminder, I touched on earlier, that starts with creating or reviewing your church's mission statement, performing a SWOT, which strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis of your church, formulating a strategy, in particular, laying out goals to be met in for the coming year, for the coming years for your church, looking at any large-scale projects your church might take on with a capital budget. Again, there's the analyzing your organization's capacity. I don't have poster videos on that particular one, but it's worth considering because your capacity is the peak amount of demand that you can handle. You can't have more members than you have capacity for. Maybe in this day and age with virtual this and that, that might not be entirely true, but that's kind of the good rule of thumb anyways. Beyond that, we've got the operating budget, which is a forecast of income and expenses, and then a financial budget, forecast of the timing of cash flows. That's, to me, comprehensive steps in strategic planning. Okay. Now, does that mean follow those steps? No question, that's the only way to go about it? No, not necessarily, but I would say those steps will give you, if you legitimately go through them, legitimately commit thought to them, will give you a super comprehensive review of your church, its goals, your environment, the reality of money coming in and money coming out, and any number of other things. It's just an intense, self-reflective sort of thing that might be uncomfortable at times, but will ultimately lead to your benefit. It just, it's hard to picture a situation where going through that you would come out worse off than you went in. And I'll also say these steps are originally conceived of in the for-profit realm, the regular business realm or whatever you call it, not necessarily the not-for-profit, but they translate over just fine. That was something that I wondered as I got into writing these posts, making these videos. How different would it be to, and part of the reason I chose to address churches as kind of the first industry as I was getting my website off the ground is I was curious about how how it would all translate to the not-for-profit realm, and it translates just fine. There are a couple other things to consider, and frankly more so when we get into the budgeting aspect of things, but a couple of things to consider that are a little different than for a for-profit business, but really it's very, very similar. Okay, so covered. I got the other videos there. Okay, so I'll qualify this video since I did the same for my mission statement video and my capacity planning video. Capacity planning, no, I didn't do that. Sorry, brain got scrambled there. SWOT analysis video, SWOT analysis and mission statement video. And I do this to be completely upfront, to be authentic, to let you know that I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm not trying to pretend to be something I'm not. I'm, like I said, just a guy who is better skilled in the hard skills, as I put them, the spreadsheets, the budgeting, the numbers, the quantifiable stuff. Okay, admittedly, that's my thing. But created these videos on the softer skills to round out the whole church strategic planning series. I wanted to cover more or less all of those steps, not just the hard skills, because I thought I had something to offer on the fact. on those issues, on those steps. And I never pretend to say, nope, this is the way to do it, absolutely, unequivocally. I'm right. If you think different, you're wrong. I've never come off that way. Okay? These are, after giving a lot of thought, the steps I would take to address these qualifiable, however you want to put them, steps. Mission statement, SWOT analysis, strategy formulation that you're doing right now. So anyhow, I want to get that out there. I'm also not, I guess what I'm getting at with all this, and I might not have mentioned earlier, is I'm not a church goer per se. I've been to church. I'm familiar with churches. The remainder of my family goes to a church. I've been around people who are regular churchgoers for many decades now, and I respect it and that. But I'm not in the pews every Sunday. So if that bothers you, and if you think that I have absolutely no value to add because of that, then you know what to do. You might have done it already. Check out another video or whatever. But I do think I have something to offer. I do think what I'm saying is authentic on how I would address it, and I encourage you to hear me out and take the good parts of what you hear. I'm sure I have something to offer, so take the best of what I have to offer and add it to the great stuff that you're already doing, and you'll be all right. So anyhow, it's a little background about where I stand. Let me add to, for whatever it's worth, I have a pretty decent amount of education, but I'm not a big proponent of formal education, having been through it, and I don't know. I've learned more on my own than I ever have from a professor. But I have an MBA. I am a certified management accountant. Okay, and most people don't know what that is. So if you're wondering, if you think I made that up, I didn't make it up. But you don't know what it is, don't beat yourself up about that. Most people don't. But I can say this about myself. Okay, so if you are in church management, and you probably know then a person can't really understand religious texts until they've read them many times, until they've pondered them, thought about them, debated about them. Just reading it doesn't do anything, and that's part of my problem with formal education. If you go and just sit through class, you'll probably be all right. Most people are going to graduate just doing that. Some people have to work harder than others. Some people have to work less hard. We're all a little different in that respect, but if you just go and give it the time, you're probably going to be all right. It's not half the battle, it's 80% of the battle, just going. But to really learn something, like you probably have when it comes to these religious texts, to really be able to speak knowledgeably about it, and to really, just wrap your head around it, you have to immerse yourself into it. You have to just dive deep, get really down in there and challenge things and think about them and decide how you feel about certain things and maybe test things out and all that. And that's what I've done with a lot of this stuff, particularly the quantitative aspects, the hard skills, as I put them, of strategic planning. I've taken the time and conceived of these hypothetical companies and situations, and I've tested, and I've just ran my head against the wall just several times, with things that I couldn't figure out, I couldn't make add up, I couldn't make equal out together, and so I give myself a hard time about the soft skills, but and I do think I have something to offer there. But when it comes to the hard skills, I'm I know my stuff. I'm confident in that, and I can help you out in those. So those hard skill videos are coming. Like I said, it's operational budget, capital budget, financial budget. Okay, so if we take your intimate knowledge of your church and add it with my intimate knowledge of finances and the quantitative side of things, I'm sure that I can help you in your church address any problems that might fall under that umbrella. Okay? So, let's get into the actual. That's a little bit about strategic planning. Let's get into actual strategy formulation. Okay? So, what is strategy formulation? How's it different from strategic planning? And I'll go back to the analogy I made. I know I made it in the mission statement video. I think I made it in the SWOT analysis video. And I said the mission statement gives you direction. If you think about north, south, east, west, northwest, southwest, southeast, northwest. I don't remember. I might have said one of them twice, but whatever. A mission statement helps point you in the right direction. You think about the 360 degrees there that make it an entire circle. Helps you narrow down the direction you want to go. 5 degrees, 45 degrees, 180 degrees, whatever. Okay. The SWOT analysis, I would draw the analogy, then maps the terrain for you. Okay, here's the rivers, here's the hills, here's the impassable cliffs, here's an ocean, here's the freezing weather, or the frozen tundra, here's the desert, those sort of things. That's the terrain. Okay, so then I would say the strategy formulation is mapping your route. Okay, just like when you put it in your GPS and that blue line highlights the road you're going to take from where you are to where you want to go, that's strategy formulation. Each step of the strategic planning makes clearer the map, okay, and your direction you're going and how you're going to get there. Okay, so what is a requisite to planning a route, though? Well, you have to know where you're going. Okay, right now I live in Kansas, and if I just type in Northwest Kansas into Google Maps or Apple Maps or whatever it may be, I don't know that I'm going to get a result, because it's just not specific enough. Okay, I can put in a city and it'll tell me, it'll just take me, to the dead center of the city, but you have to have a pretty clear idea of where you want to go before you can plan a route to get there. Okay, so planning a route in terms of strategic planning and strategy formulation is to crystallize your vision of your church. Okay, this is the close your eyes, let your mind wander, and what do you see? Where is your church? Just what's it look like? Just what do you want to see? If you had the opportunity, to wiggle your nose in your church, all of its problems would be solved. It'd be operating exactly as you would like. What would that look like? What's your vision, 5 years or so? Excuse me. So that's your destination. And then we want to talk about the landmarks that you'll pass on the way there. Those are the goals that need to be met to get you from where you are to your destination. Okay? You know, I'm a big proponent of keeping things simple, or as simplistic as possible. Complication always tries to push itself into anything we do. Okay? We're thinking creatures, okay, and I know I do. You just start to, my mind runs away with all these variables, things that go wrong in that, and it's you know, it's great to plan and ifs and buts and all that sort of thing, but you know, especially if you're just starting out, okay. Don't want to get overwhelmed. Don't want to, don't want to get burnt out. Don't want to say, to heck with it, and first of all, not do any strategy formulation. But then, if you do feel overwhelmed, and not take action on it, because I talked about that earlier. The plan's no good if you don't take action on it. Okay, so there are, within strategy formulation, 3 different strategies that need to be considered. 3 different but complementary strategies that you need to think about. You might be thinking to yourself, 3 strategies, one was going to be enough of a problem. Why do I have to make 3 of them? And that's a perfectly logical thing to think, but stay with me here. It'll kind of make sense here to understand what these 3 strategies are and how they all fit together. So the first strategy is the one I've kind of talked about so far. That's the overall strategy. Okay, this is known as the corporate strategy in the business world. It's for the entire company. Okay, the goals that your church as a whole has to achieve to get from where you are to where you want to be, where that vision is, okay, where that destination is. Now, a subset of that is the competitive strategy. Okay, and maybe you think to yourself now, well, I'm a church. We don't have competition. I would, if that is what you're thinking, I would urge you to rethink that, okay, because from what I can see as an outsider looking in, there are 2 drastically different views in terms of how a church might address competition. Okay, there's the meta perspective, I might call it, where a church thinks that as long as somebody is at peace with God or acknowledges Jesus as their Savior, or does any of those big picture things, then it's okay. They might come here, they might go somewhere else, but as long as they have these big picture tenets addressed, as long as people, are cool with these big picture things, then, here, there, we'd love to have them here, but if they go somewhere else, that's all right. They don't necessarily revolve around people just coming to your church. Okay, that's the kind of meta view. The other perspective, the other extreme, I should say, would be the notion that you and your church are basically the one true way into paradise after you die. It's the one right way to live. In that case, your competition, is every other church that doesn't conform to exactly your same doctrine. Okay. In either case, both of you are going to be competing against anything else that might keep a person from going to church in the first place. Because if a person doesn't go to church in the first place, they're not going to come to your church that believes that it's the one true way. Okay. So my point with this is you're competing with something, whether it doesn't matter where you are. You're somewhere probably between those 2 extremes. Your church, okay. I would imagine most are. All right. But, I'm not passing judgment either way. Okay. I'm in absolutely no position to tell you or your church what to think in those respects. Okay. Like I said, I just use the extremes, as I was calling as an example. Okay. My goal is to help you reach your goals, whatever they may be. And I make that illustration, like I said, to help you understand that you have competition. Okay, so you have to keep that in mind as you move forward and make your goals. You have to have a competitive strategy to a greater or lesser degree. Okay. The last of the 3 different strategies is the functional strategy. Okay. Functional strategy is where you take the overall strategy and break the goals down into the departments in your church. Okay, so let's look at our counterparts in the for-profit world. They will have a corporate strategy, but then have a strategy for manufacturing, for customer service. And by strategy, I mean goals. Okay, for marketing, for sales, for quality control. Okay, and all of those goals are going, achievement of those departmental goals, the functional goals, are going to contribute to the achievement of the goals by the organization as a whole. So your church might be big, small, in between, but no matter how informal it might be, okay, you have departments most likely. You have somebody that kind of does your finance, accounting. You have somebody kind of does operations, so to speak, interaction with members. So as we move into the how-to portion of things, you can ultimately have to think about what goals make sense for those smaller departments that are going to help your church as a whole reach its goals. Okay? So, let's get into the actual how-to. Again, this is just one way to address it, not the definitive way to address it. So, we talked about vision. Okay? What does your church look like in 5 to 10 years? What do you picture? What would make you feel like, oh man, we made it? It's challenges are addressed. Things are rolling good. I mean, you can never I don't think, and maybe it's part of my personality, I'm a little high strung in that respect, always pushing to do more, achieve more and that, but but again, this is just a thought exercise. So, what would your church look like if you did that? If you took time and thought about your vision, and what are you seeing? What would it take to reach that goal? What has to happen? You can try working your way backwards from that vision. You can try working your way forward from it, and hopefully, as you kind of look at both, work your way backward from the destination, work your way forward from where you are, hopefully you can start to paint a picture of the goals that need to be met in order to create that route for you to get from where you are to where you want to be. I mean, think about it. If you want 1,000 members in your church, and currently only have 100, well, you've got to have 200 before you have 500, before you have 800, before you have 1,000, okay? Things have to happen just in steps. It's not tomorrow 1,000 show up, okay? That would probably, frankly, be disastrous. So it's about thinking about the milestones that have to be hit on your way to achieving your vision. This should start to give you a little idea of your path, okay? Things are still a little vague here, but it should start to hopefully, see a little bit of that blue line that leads you from where you are to where you want to be. in particular, the things, what happens tomorrow, what happens next week, next month, the short term is more under your control and it's more certain than the long term. Okay, that's the case in whatever you're doing, whether it's strategy formulation or forecasting. When it comes to making revenue or expense estimates for capital budgeting, operational budgets, and all of that. Okay, so you want probably more goals in the short term, as in the coming year, than you do in year 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. There's any infinite number of things that you could do to move yourself towards that vision, and you don't have the time and energy to do them all. You don't have the resources to do them all. So keep it simple and achievable. Okay. If you do your little part, keep in mind that the other organizations out there that are doing good in the world, they'll do their little part. And when you combine all the little parts that all the churches over the world do, then what that can add up to could be pretty significant. Okay, so with your goals, you probably heard the old analogy about goals. They got to be smart. I don't even remember. Let's see. Can we look that up here? It's not bad. It's not bad advice. I'm not cracking on it, but smart means specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. It's good rule of thumb to keep in mind when coming up with goals. Okay. I say this in every video, and I want to re-emphasize it. Just make sure you're dealing with reality. Don't make pie in the sky goals. Don't make goals. I've worked for for-profit companies. They make goals. They're just silly. It's just they're arbitrary, and they don't do anything to motivate anybody. It's just going through the motions. It's pointless. It's a waste of time. Okay, so simple and achievable. Okay, focus on your strengths from the SWOT analysis. Okay, if you have a car that's meant for speed, then take those roads that are long, straight, flat tops that you can see the cops coming from 10 miles away, right? And you can take that bad boy up to 150. If that's your strength, that's your car. If you have the off-road vehicle or that, then take that can only go 50 miles per hour tops. Don't worry about those. Take the shorter route that can take the rough terrain and can handle it. Okay, so yeah, keep in mind your strengths. Don't fight yourself on your own goals. You know what I'm saying? So a couple of things to keep in mind there when coming up with goals based on your vision. Another thing to do is put yourself in the public's shoes. Okay? So, like it or not, like I said, we talked about, so whereas the vision kind of addresses back up for a second here, where the vision kind of addresses the corporate strategy, all right, putting yourself in customer shoes is going to address the competitive strategy. The next section is going to address the, functional strategy. Okay, so when it comes to the competitive strategy, put yourself in the public's shoes. Okay, you have to think about how you're perceived when you're compared to the alternatives. Alternatives might be a church down the street, or they might be something, frankly, a little less desirable. Okay, a little less holy, so to speak. But these temptations exist. If they didn't, everybody would come to your church. You'd have 7 billion people there every Sunday. I mean, that's not the case. There are alternatives. Now, obviously, there's a whole geography thing there. It's an extreme example, but you get my point. Okay? There are alternatives. People have to make that decision Sunday morning, Saturday evening, whatever it might be, Sunday afternoon, to come to find transportation and to come to your church and make the commitment to stay for 45 minutes, an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it may be. Okay? So there's competition. So it just helps to put yourself in your customers' shoes, your members' shoes, your potential members' shoes, and try to see things from their perspective. Okay? So, the number of competitors depends kind of where you are on that spectrum. If you take the meta view, as I said, then you're really just competing against temptations that would keep people from being religious or being spiritual or something like that. On the other hand, if you feel as though your church is the one way, then you're going to have a lot more competitors. I mean, that's just simple logic. You've got a taller task on your hands. Okay? So think about what makes your church different. Again, the for-profit parallel I might draw is, they always talk about a unique selling proposition. I mean, what's your why you? Why your church? Why should people choose your church? Why do they? The should will probably come from the do. If something doesn't pop in your head right away, talk to your people, solidify it. Think about why you're there. Why you chose to work at this particular church or volunteer or whatever it might be. You want to keep that in mind as you make goals for a competitive strategy. So, again, I'll also say there's a reason that these strategic planning steps take place in the order that they do, because you want to think back to your strengths and weaknesses from the SWOT analysis, which should, in my opinion, be done before this step. Okay? About how you set your church apart. Weaknesses are things you want to avoid, strengths are things you want to capitalize upon. Think back to when you cross-referenced strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Okay, those are good ideas about goals in terms of competitive advantage. If you think back to that, I mean, it had everything from, the SWOT analysis was your environment. So, you want to, having considered your environment, the reality you work in, you want to make goals based on that. You want to make goals that are going to set your church apart from other churches based on the environment that you operate in. Okay, so things from your traffic and your signage to the demographics of where you operate out of, to the culture of where you operate out of, and all those things, all things to consider as you make those competitive strategy goals. So keep in mind, competitive strategy is a subset of your overall strategy. So don't make a competitive strategy that contradicts your overall strategy, okay? It should just be a more detailed set of goals that feeds from your overall strategy, okay? Because you can't serve two masters, so to speak, have a competitive strategy that with goals that have you doing one thing, and overall strategy has you doing a completely different thing. Okay, the path there is going to break off then. Okay, or it's going to turn into a dead end. Okay, you're going to have a fork in the road, and they're both going to be dead ends. Again, to go back to the map analogy. So the final part here addresses, and last part, the functional strategy. So you got your overall strategy, you got your competitive strategy, you got goals for each. Okay, it's time to start then thinking about what the departments within your church, what they can do, what they can achieve, what they need to achieve for those competitive goals and those overall goals to be achieved. If your church is super small, those, the different functional roles might be fulfilled by the same people. Okay? That doesn't matter. Again, it's more about the role than the number of individuals doing it. Okay? So that's kind of a thing where you need to custom make it for your church, and just again, you might have departmental goals. If you're not big enough to have departments, then it might just be a goal for Sally, who helps out with the books, a goal for Joe, who's the pastor, a goal for Bob, who does the outreach into the community, or whatever it may be. Just it's kind of breaking those goals down into smaller, more tangible chunks, that just things that the individual people, okay, because any organization, any church is made up of individual people, goals that those individual people can say, okay, if I do X, Y, and Z every week, every day, I can picture achieving this, that, or the other in a month, in 6 months. And then if I keep doing it beyond there, achieving this in, a year. And then by achieving that in a year, that's helped to improve the church's competitive position, whether it's filling out or somebody running your social media and just doing something on there, and it all of a sudden helps set your church apart. That helps you achieve your goals from your competitive strategy, and that coupled with other goals achieved from your competitive strategy can help you achieve an overall goal, an increase in membership, a stronger membership, whatever it may be. I hope I'm painting that picture about how, it just all breaks down to individuals, day in, day out. It's a grind sometimes, these sorts of things, but, doing the right things, moving towards a goal, achieving small goals that compound into bigger goals and snowball to even bigger goals, which take you from where you are, okay, to your destination, your vision. So, kind of wraps things up. I want to emphasize again, try to keep this stuff simple, especially if this is your first year of doing this sort of thing. You might be gung-ho about it. If hearing me talk about these sorts of things gets you gung-ho, then I'm flattered, okay? But rein it in a little bit, keep it practical, focus on, understand the first time around you do this that, it's not going to be perfect. You're going to get better every year, and that's good, okay? You want to get better at it every year, all right? So don't just keep it. That's my advice, to keep things simple, okay? And understand that it's through failure, really, that we learn our lessons, okay? Learn the things that we need to succeed. So don't look at failure as the end of the road, okay? Just a detour, okay? Roads washed out, there's construction, traffic jam, okay, on the way. So keep, just don't let falling short, keep you from making big plans, high aspirations, and that sort of thing. If you go through the steps, again, the strategic planning steps, I think you're going to be better off, and you're going to be closer to those, everything that you do that I've outlined, I think will help you get closer to achieving what you want to achieve. Again, if I were starting my own church tomorrow, these are the things that I would do. Okay, so that kind of wraps up the main part of the video. I like to end my videos with a few questions, food for thought, so to speak, for the comments. Before I do that, I have to do something that I don't love to do, suck up my pride, and just ask for likes, subscriptions, notifications. Comments are good, I guess. Anything that sends positive feedback to YouTube that you liked what you heard, even if you only like some of it, it's free. You don't only have like so many likes to give over your lifetime. You could like every video on YouTube if you wanted to. Like I said, I hate to grovel, but if you did like something that you heard, it does help. It gives me positive feedback to do more of this sort of thing, and it gives positive feedback to YouTube, Google, whoever it may be, that hey, get this in front of more people. That's just the way the system works, and it's not necessarily always the best videos that get in front of the most people. Okay, thanks first of all for even just watching the video. This YouTube video or YouTube channel's in its infancy, and I'm just thankful to have people even watch it. But yeah, so any of that stuff, likes, subscribe, because I do have a lot more coming up. Not just in churches, just a lot of great information coming up just for business in general. Alerts, comments, all that. So thank you in advance for all that. Anyhow, so yeah, in the comments, look, what I want to hear back from you guys is kind of two things. First of all, what's your vision for your church? Okay, if you're in church management, great. Let me know what your vision is for the church that you manage. On the flip side, though, too, if you're just a member of a church, what's your vision for the church that you're a member of? Okay, or what's your vision of a church in general? How would you paint your perfect church? Okay, what would it do? Who would it serve? How big would it be? Whatever comes to mind. Whatever happens when you clear your mind a little bit, close your eyes, and think about it. And then on top of that, another thing I'd like to know from you guys is whether it's a church you manage, a church that you attend, what's one goal that would bring it closer to that? I think I don't have to list, you don't have to go through the whole strategy formulation process, but look, given this feedback could give great ideas to people who are watching this video 5 years from now. My hope is this content's a little bit evergreen. So it'll be up for a while, and people, that's the beauty of YouTube. People keep searching for it. And if I get, if we convince YouTube that it's good content, they'll keep showing it to people. And what you put down in the comments now could help inspire somebody 1, 3, 5, 10 years from now, 100 years from now. Who knows, really? So I'd love to hear from you guys on that. That's all I got. I didn't even keep track of time this time. I'm sure that this was long, and I appreciate you if you're still with me. Appreciate you sticking with me this long, and thank you for that. Take care. Bye-bye.